Welcome to Driven Up's Power Talk. I'm Jasmine Moore.
And I'm Rebecca Heisey. We're two work besties who have spent over a decade learning the ins and outs of sales and marketing.
On this podcast, we discuss all things go-to-market operations, the people, processes, and technologies that make up the engine of a thriving go-to-market function. Let's get to it. Today's discussion is sparked by a recent article on MarTech. I love their articles. It's called How More Tools and Tactics Hurt Marketing Performance by Jamin Hancock. This article was great. It's essentially saying that the common issue and trend that a lot of companies are facing is that they have too much tech. And so the article cites MarTech stacks have exploded in mid-market companies with 501 to 2,500 employees use an average of 255 apps.
That's crazy.
I can't even picture.
Yeah.
I can because of that infographic.
Yeah.
I think we're up to 14,000 MarTech solutions as of 2024. Based off of Chief MarTech's marketing technology landscape infographic.
But when you think about it, you have your common tools that you use. Could you imagine actually having 250 something open every day?
No.
I got to use all these tools. Yeah.
No.
That's crazy.
It's not. They say that most is marketing, but if you think about it, everything we do is in an application, a cloud app.
Yeah.
Google, Slack,
Right.
Salesforce, HubSpot, all of these apps. And I'm surprised we all don't have attention issues, bouncing back and forth all day.
I think we do, though.
I think we do. Yeah. And that's why.
This is why. Makes sense.
So the issue is now we're trying to figure out not only what to buy, but what in our existing stack is mission critical. And I think that's a problem that a lot of teams are facing.
Yeah.
Because we're buying all of these tools and we get shiny object syndrome as marketers sometimes. We have an issue, let's throw a solution at it.
Yep.
But what happens is we get into this efficiency paradox where we have more tools, but more tools, more problems, what they say. And it just causes friction. It's wasted effort, and you get to a point of diminishing returns where you're not getting the ROI on your tools anymore. Now you're just spending too much time trying to figure out the tools and make sure that they are interconnected.
Yep, definitely. And I think it's just like anything, new things are always fun, but then the novelty kind of wears off.
Yeah.
And for marketing, yes, marketing definitely has a lot of technology. I think like you said, we've covered that with the mass amounts of tools that the MarTech, group has even announced that's in the space now. But at the same time, even from the sales perspective, right, we have tools where marketing and sales use to collaborate with each other, and then they have their tools for outreach, and it gets into tech bloat.
Yeah.
And for a lot of those reps, it's just tech fatigue. They don't know how to bounce from one platform to the other, because you have your sales engagement tools, so they're doing their calls, their emails. Then you have tools where they have to do research. You have things like LinkedIn. Then you have other platforms where they have to download data. They have to look at intent data, right? Gifting platforms. You're just bouncing all over the place. And a lot of times, granted, they're set up to kind of work together, but sometimes maybe you haven't set it up so efficiently, and that's not how it works. So sometimes it's just simplify, don't add, right?
Yeah, simplify, don't add, because like you said, the tech debt is getting out of control. But also you get to a point where you have data silos. If your sales team is using this tool, marketing is using this tool, what's the source of truth? Where are you pulling your reports out of? It's just causing overall confusion with leadership because they don't know where to focus. So what we need to do is lead with strategy, because a lot of the times, instead of throwing another tool at something, just take a step back and reassess what your strategy is, because your issue can probably be fixed by a process and strategy correction. Attribution, for example, is a very common pain point with marketing leaders. They just really want to know what's working and what's moving the needle. And so in their minds, and sometimes that may be the case, they think, I need this fancy attribution tool because it's going to slice and dice all of my data and I'm going to know exactly what's working. But the problem is when you get that tool and implement it, your data's a mess. It's not going to work. You're going to have to stop anyway and fix your data and create the data strategy that you need for the tool to work. A lot of the times, that's all that's needed for you to get the answers that you need is a clear UTM strategy and data tracking strategy. And it's going to tell you what's working in your marketing strategy.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that, like, to that point too, sometimes you just need the right person. So maybe there's a gap, but maybe it's not solvable or doesn't need to be solved by an additional tool. You just need the right person to focus on what's going on. And maybe that needs to become their role. Maybe you just need to hire an extra head, right? And again, even with the platforms that you do have, sometimes automation illusion comes into play where we have all these different features with AI now. And the article actually mentions a really good example of this where in the use case, they were talking about how somebody wanted to implement an automation rule, but then once it actually triggered, it was using like AI to help formulate that automation and what was output from the automation. And then it just sounded too robotic. So they still had to bring in a human to come in and fix the automation. So sometimes like these processes, these tools, these automation rules that we try to implement that we think are going to streamline and fix things create more problems.
Now you're using the resources to try to fix it. You're also using resources to enable your team and teach your team how to use it. A lot of the time, sales doesn't have time to learn another tool.
No.
Unfortunately, we want them to use our tools and we want them to like be so efficient, but sometimes efficiency means simplified.
Yes, definitely.
Let's figure out what are your top 1 or 2 tools that you can use every day and go to, and like let's make sure you use those tools to their full capacity.
Yeah, exactly.
And now these tools are getting great because so many tools are trying to be your one tool. And you don't realize that tools have overlapping functionality. So it takes that enablement person. Like you said, you may just need someone to have a pulse on what are the new tool developments. Keep track of the product roadmap of your existing stack so you know like what you have because you already pay for these tools.
Right.
So understand what they can provide you and get the best out of them.
Yep. And then on top of that, like that's such a great point. But then with that same person, they can also keep track of the integrations and all of the maintenance that's going on. And that's another really important thing is that you add all these tools, but then it's like people think that you just set it and forget it. And that's where a lot of these bigger gaps come in because now, again, you're stuck in a contract because you've already agreed to put this new piece of, this new technology into your system. But then at the same time, somebody has to maintain it. Somebody has to make sure those integrations are working. And to your point, with all these tech stacks that we already have, just for our normal day-to-day functions, right? Like if you're in a tech company and you use Slack or you use, Google or you use Microsoft, all of those have to connect to your other tools that you're using as well. So especially if you're in sales too, because you're using those video conferencing tools to meet with your customers. And where does that go? It goes to the cloud. So you see, and all of those technologies have to talk to each other. They have to work correctly.
Yeah.
But you have to have someone focusing
to configure
on
it.
Yeah.
That has to be configured. It just doesn't out of the box.
No.
That's a buzzword I hope I never hear again because nothing is out of the box.
No.
Please show me something that I can take my box cutter and use it and it just
good to
works
go.
and
Yeah.
it's immediate value. It doesn't exist. So
no.
please stop using out of the box. It doesn't exist.
Yeah,
Thank
it
you.
doesn't. Yeah. Definitely.
Okay, so what we can do as teams and marketing and sales leaders is I think we should, like I said, have a pulse on what you have and do routine technology audits. You should be doing an audit at least twice a year of like, let me just get a lay of the land. What do I have? What am I using? What are the latest developments? How can I get more out of it? And use your customer success team. A lot of the times you think that you have to figure something out yourself and, okay, now I have to learn this tool and study everything that I can do and then enable my team. You have a customer success manager, especially on the big tools where you have like a big contract. They have a team dedicated to enable you because they want you to renew. So come contract renewal time, they want to make sure that you're getting the most out of this tool. So leverage that and have them come in and do a training, have them come in and present to your team like, hey, you guys can do this. Like you're already paying for that service. Please utilize it.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that if the company is big enough, they might even have other services where you'll have your own customer success manager, but then they might have other things you can join. They might have training sessions, they might have webinars, they might have regular working sessions with other CSMs that you can join and ask them questions, just like a weekly sync or something like that. So look at what's available for you to leverage within that company so that you can get as much knowledge and information as possible.
If a tool disappeared today, would your team even notice? Ask yourself that too.
That's a great question. That is a great question.
Look at the logins. If you guys didn't have this tool, could you go without it? If the answer is no, then it's probably a good indicator that you have too much tech.
Yep, definitely.
On top of the tech audits, the second thing I'd say is optimize your processes. Look at your process, make sure your processes are on point and your workflows are tight without the technology. I always like to say when someone asks, oh, can this be automated or how can I make this integrated? I always push back and say, how are we doing it manually? Like we need to do a repeatable manual process multiple times and iron out how that is before we look at automating it, because you're just throwing technology at an issue when most likely it's a process issue.
Yep. And make sure you're communicating with other teams too, because you don't know how big that tech stack has been like enabled across your company. And so if you decide to make a change like that, you don't know if it will impact some other team, like their routing, whatever is going on with whatever type of tool it is. You need to make sure you're communicating those changes. But yes, you want to make sure you're focusing on those processes and get down to the root cause and why you're really looking to add more.
Yes. But yeah, great article. Love this discussion. I can nerd out on talking tech stacks all day. We'll link the full article in the description. It's time for Coffee Talk.
Coffee Talk.
What are we talking about today, Becca?
All right. Today we're going to talk about work icks.
Okay.
Like, what do people do that just give you the ick? What have people done where you're just like, yeah, I could do without that. Thank you.
Okay, you go first. I have to think about it for a minute.
Okay, so I'm virtual, and I've been virtual for a really long time. But I think that, before when we were in the office, you'd hear people doing things or shuffling or just making weird noises. But it happens virtually too, where people are just like too close to the microphone and you can just hear them breathing.
Oh, they're like breathing?
Yeah, they're just like breathing into it. And you're like, could you mute? Because someone's talking, but I can hear you breathing really hard. I'm sorry, but like, it's just, like it's kind of like a virtual etiquette maybe. You just want to like make sure you mute. No one wants to hear you breathing.
You're breathing too loud,
You're
sir.
just breathing way too loud. Sorry. But it's just like, I don't know, maybe it's like a phobia, but it kind of makes you cringe a little. You're like, oh, that doesn't sound right. Like nails on a chalkboard?
Yeah.
No. That's my thing.
That's interesting. I mean, I guess I could see that. It doesn't bother me. I'm the problem, I think. Like, meh, okay. But I have an ick.
Okay.
Okay, so this is for campaign operations. So when you're in campaign ops, you're executing on programs. And one of my, I don't know if it's a pet peeve, but it is an ick. It's annoying. When someone submits like a program to execute like an email copy, they get, you have a Google Doc, here's all the content, here's the CTA and what you're going to offer. And instead of linking the actual public facing asset, they just kind of reference it. They don't link the asset. They call it some random name like, oh, here's that product video. How many product videos do we have?
Yeah.
Or they link the Google Drive link. So it's not even the public link. So we have to go into our CMS and look for it. It's just so annoying.
Oh, yeah.
Like now I have to go and look for this. And like, it's because they assume that you know it because like, oh, you know our content, like, you know what this is. And like, yeah, if I took the time and tried to figure, I shouldn't have to take the time is the thing. Like, give me a complete package so that I can execute it.
I don't even do that. Like at this point, we get the exact same thing. And at this point, I'm just kind of like, I comment and I go, you need to share the actual link. We're not going to guess, because if we put the wrong one, and sometimes you have different versions of your asset. So like, how am I supposed to know if you want a video that's 30 seconds or like 1 minute or 5 minutes, or if you want a case study or the ebook, or what version of it do you want? You're just,
which solution brief? We have 10, 50, 11 of them. So which one?
I totally agree. I mean, that's more of like a process thing. Mine was more of like a human function thing. human thing.
You went kind of hard on that.
Sorry, but it's just, I don't know. It's like when you're on
you're
a quiet
breathing
meeting,
too hard.
You're
I'm
breathing
sorry,
really hard. Like, just mute. It's okay. Like, just mute. I don't know. Maybe I think I'm sensitive to sounds. I don't know.
I am definitely the loud breather, I think.
Sorry, maybe I just made you self-conscious about that. And
nope, don't care.
I'll give you the ick all day.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So let us know your work icks in the comments. I'd be interested to know them. They can be process or bodily function focused. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. We hope you enjoyed this episode.
See you next time.
Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on all social media platforms.
Keep up with us and all of our hot takes on all things go-to-market operations. See you next time.